Welcome to the Global History Channel. If you're into amazing stories from the past, make sure to smash that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next video. Let's start with the 1980s. Wedding photos from that decade are full of bold fashion and big hair. Puffy sleeves, lace gowns, pastel tuxedos, and extravagant hairstyles ruled the day. But it wasn't just about style. It was about capturing the joy, the laughter, and the family bonds. These pictures remind us that while trends change, the spirit of love never goes out of fashion. Speaking of royalty, rare photos of Princess Victoria Louise, the only daughter of Kaiser Wilhelm II, take us back to early 20th century Germany. She wasn't just another royal figure. She was Germany's last imperial princess before the monarchy fell. Her portraits, from her grand 1913 wedding to quieter moments, reveal elegance, grace, and a life caught between tradition and history's turning point. Jumping ahead to the 1970s and 80s, nothing screams freedom like Volkswagen vans. These iconic rides became the symbol of adventure and counterculture. Families hit the road, friends camped by the beach, and wanderers embraced a lifestyle of community and creativity. Looking at these photos today, you don't just see vans, you see the spirit of an entire generation chasing the open road. Then we find something by pure chance. Forgotten photos of young women's fashion from the late 1980s and early 1990s. Oversized jackets, bold prints, denim everywhere, scrunchies, and statement jewelry. These weren't just outfits, they were identities. Each candid snapshot is a reminder of how style has always been a language of confidence and creativity. But history isn't only about style. In the early 1900s, knife grinders in France worked lying flat on their stomachs while sharpening blades. This odd position spared their backs, but it came with chest strain and long-term health risks. Old photos of these workers capture not just a lost trade, but the resilience of laborers who literally laid down their bodies for their craft. Medicine was transforming at the same time. Dr. Harvey Cushing, often called the father of modern neurosurgery, photographed his brain surgery patients in the early 20th century. These haunting portraits show scars, trauma, and vulnerability, but also survival. They're not just medical records. They're powerful reminders of the human will to endure during the earliest days of brain surgery. And then we swing to something much lighter, nostalgic snapshots of Dr. Pepper's golden years. Vintage ads, happy families, and young people sipping from glass bottles capture a time when soda wasn't just a drink, it was part of American tradition. These images remind us how something as simple as a fizzy drink can weave itself into culture. Fashion also brought scandal. In 1907, swimmer Annette Kellerman was arrested for daring to wear a one-piece swimsuit. Her portraits, equal parts elegance and defiance, challenged society's restrictive norms. What was once shocking became the foundation of modern swimwear, blending athletic freedom with early feminist courage. By the 1980s, the spotlight was on rising stars like Demi Moore. Photos from her early years capture her edgy fashion, youthful charm, and undeniable presence. Looking back, you can see her transformation, each frame hinting at the stardom she was destined to achieve. But not all trends were about Hollywood. The 1960s and 70s gave us the era of the go-go boots. Women rocked them with mini skirts and bold outfits, striding with confidence and style. Vintage photos show that these weren't just boots. They were a symbol of liberation and the fearless fashion revolution of the time. Let's kick things off with energy. Early 1900s amateur sports. Imagine it. Dusty fields, neighbors in simple uniforms, no sponsors or TV cameras. People played for joy, for community, for that pure rush of the game. The photos show laughter mid-stride, determination on faces, kids watching from the sidelines. Back then, sports weren't about million-dollar contracts. They were about play. And honestly, you can feel that vibe through the images. Now shift from playgrounds to the world's greatest treasure hunts. Archaeology has given us some jaw-dropping discoveries. Tombs sealed for thousands of years, golden masks buried with kings, entire lost cities swallowed by time. Each photo of these finds feels like opening a door to another world. They're not just artifacts, they're keys to understanding who we are, how we lived, and what we believed. Every discovery is basically a plot twist in humanity's story. But not all history is buried. Some of it simply faded away. Think about jobs that don't exist anymore. Lamplighters walking the streets at night, climbing poles to light the way, switchboard operators plugging cords to connect phone calls, town criers yelling the news before newspapers were common. These were normal gigs, essential even, but now they're gone. Old portraits of these workers feel like time machines. They remind us just how much technology and progress reshaped daily life. And then, cinema. Behind the scenes of Metropolis in 1927, you'll see crews building massive futuristic sets, workers adjusting strange robotic costumes, cameras capturing angles no one had tried before. This was decades before CGI. Every effect was handmade, every illusion carefully built. Those photos show not just a film being made, but an entire vision of the future being born on set. Fast forward to the 1980s, where the future looked a little different. This time through hairstyles. And when I say big, I mean skyscraper big. Teased, sprayed, and towering above the head, the hair wasn't just a style. It was a statement. These photos scream confidence, rebellion, and I'm here, deal with it. Looking at them now, you realize the 80s wasn't subtle about anything, least of all hair. Let's rewind again to Paris, 1908. Meet Madame Inez de Courcelles, one of the first women to ever drive a taxi. In a city full of men behind the wheel, she carved her own lane, literally. Her portraits aren't just pictures of a driver. They're snapshots of courage and independence at a time when society didn't expect women to take that role. Every mile she drove was history in motion. And now, something more haunting. Victorian widows in mourning. Photos from the 1870s to early 1900s show women dressed head to toe in heavy black gowns, faces hidden by veils, expressions locked in sorrow. It was more than grief, it was ritual. Mourning was strict, detailed, and even fashionable. These portraits carry a strange mix of elegance and eeriness, as if sorrow itself had a uniform. But history isn't always heavy. Sometimes it's just quirky, like milk deliveries in the early 20th century, done with dog-drawn carts. Yeah, real dogs pulling small wagons filled with glass bottles. The photos are equal parts charming and practical. It's one of those things that makes you think, wow, life really did run differently back then. Now to a giant, literally. King Kong, 1933. Behind-the-scenes shots show stop-motion models being carefully moved frame by frame, miniatures standing in for skyscrapers, and actors staring at empty spaces where the ape would later be added. These photos remind us just how much patience, creativity, and straight-up grit went into making one of Hollywood's first monster icons. And finally, the Halbstarken youth of 1950s and 60s Germany. Bold hair, leather jackets, cigarettes dangling, and an attitude that screamed, "We don't care." These weren't just kids, they were a movement. A pushback against strict traditions, fueled by rock and roll. Their portraits capture raw rebellion, the spirit of a generation refusing to play by the old rules. Take the lost stadium of Magnesia, an ancient Greek arena once buried under earth. Before and after excavation photos show its transformation from forgotten rubble to a restored monument. It's like watching time peel back, giving us a direct glimpse into where ancient athletes once competed. Of course, human bonds never fade, like the sweet photos of people and their cats from over 110 years ago. Whether it's a child hugging a kitten or adults posing with their feline companions, these moments prove that our love for pets is timeless. Cinema had its magic too. Behind-the-scenes photos from the 1984 classic, The Terminator, show Arnold Schwarzenegger turning into one of the most iconic characters in sci-fi history. From makeup chairs to explosive stunts, the raw production shots reveal how much grit and teamwork went into bringing a legend to life. Meanwhile, teenager bedrooms in the 1980s were their own universe. Posters plastered on walls, cassette players blaring music, neon decor, and piles of magazines. These spaces were shrines to identity and self-expression. Looking back, they perfectly capture what it meant to grow up in that unforgettable decade. Film history goes even further back with Safety Last, starring Harold Lloyd. Behind-the-scenes photos reveal how one of cinema's most daring stunts, the famous clock hanging scene, was pulled off. These images showcase creativity, clever set designs, and the raw courage of silent-era filmmaking. Technology had its quirky moments too. In 1966, England unveiled Tinker the Robot, a so-called housekeeping machine. Though limited in function, photos of Tinker attempting chores capture the playful optimism of the time, a vision of the future that hinted at the robotics revolution we live with today. On the softer side, snapshots of Victorian children from the 1890s and 1900s show them proudly holding dolls, teddy bears, and wooden toys. These portraits aren't just adorable, they reveal the social values and simple joys of childhood over a century ago. The 1970s brought a different kind of fun, the van customization craze. Old photos reveal vans transformed into rolling art pieces with wild murals, shag carpeting, and bold interiors. They weren't just vehicles, they were mobile expressions of freedom and creativity. Not all photos age gracefully, though. Studio portraits from the 1980s and 90s often mix glamour with awkward charm. Big hair, glittery outfits, dramatic poses, and cheesy backdrops. What felt stylish then now feels hilariously nostalgic, reminding us how trends always come full circle. Sports photography also tells its story. Early 20th century images of amateur athletes capture the pure joy of competition, local races, casual games, and the camaraderie that came with it. These aren't just athletes frozen in motion, they're people celebrating health, friendship, and the thrill of play in its simplest form. Let's start with the faces of 1870s Egypt, taken by French photographer Émile Bichard. His portraits show everyday Egyptians, farmers, traders, and families, captured in their cultural attire. These photos aren't just portraits. They're windows into the identity, traditions, and charm of a country finding its place in a rapidly changing world. Fast forward a couple of decades, and we step into the stylish 1890s, where women's fashion ruled with elegance. Elaborate gowns, corsets, and fine accessories define beauty and sophistication. These photos remind us how fashion wasn't just clothing. It was status, culture, and expression. But style never stands still. In fact, some groovy photos from history bring back wild trends that might just inspire your wardrobe today. They celebrate individuality, bold choices, and that fearless attitude of expressing yourself, proving that vintage looks will always remain timeless. Not every old photo is glamorous, though. Some fall into the bizarre. Bizarre historical photos capture strange inventions, unusual customs, and odd moments that make you stop and wonder. What were they thinking? But it's that weirdness that makes history so human and so fascinating. Jump ahead to the 1980s, and we're looking at men's hairstyles that were nothing short of iconic. Mullets, perms, slickbacks, and spikes. The 80s were about confidence and standing out. These photos aren't just about hair, they're about a cultural vibe that's still celebrated today. Now, imagine stepping into Jerusalem at the turn of the 20th century. Rare photographs show its ancient streets, bustling markets, and sacred landmarks. Each snapshot carries the weight of centuries of faith, culture, and community, frozen in a moment when modern life was just beginning to reshape the holy city. Across the sea, Victorian London in color photos brings the 19th century to life in a way black and white never could. You see the busy streets, the fashions, and the architecture in vibrant tones, making you feel like you've traveled back in time to walk alongside Londoners of the past. But history goes back much further than that. Ancient fashion reveals the oldest clothes and accessories humans ever made. From simple woven fabrics and preserved shoes to jewelry crafted from shells and bones. These discoveries prove that even in prehistoric times, people cared about expression, identity, and style. Of course, not all stories are uplifting. Some are heartbreaking, like the story of the radium girls in the early 20th century. Young women painting watch dials with glowing radium were told it was safe. They even ingested it while working. But the radiation slowly poisoned them, leaving a legacy of pain that forced the world to rethink workplace safety forever. And finally, we arrive in Budapest between 1939 and 1944. Color photographs from this time reveal families, markets, and daily routines during one of history's darkest chapters, World War II. These images capture a striking contrast. Ordinary life unfolding against the looming shadow of war, showing resilience in the face of hardship. The Azorean hood was a unique traditional attire worn by Portuguese women from the Azores, especially in the 19th and early 20th centuries. These hooded capes, called capote e capello, were large, voluminous garments that offered modesty, protection, and style. Vintage photos capture their cultural elegance and timeless beauty. The weddings of the 1970s reflected the free-spirited vibe of the decade, blending tradition with bold fashion choices. Brides often wore flowing gowns, lace details, and flower crowns, while grooms embraced wide collars and flared pants. Vintage photos from this era showcase love, joy, and the groovy charm of 70s celebrations. Flappers of the 1920s redefined fashion and freedom with their bold style and attitude. Short dresses, bobbed hair, cloche hats, and long pearl necklaces became their signature. Vintage photos capture these women dancing, smoking, and enjoying nightlife, symbolizing rebellion, independence, and the roaring spirit of the Jazz Age. Before rising to power, Adolf Hitler pursued art, creating paintings and sketches of buildings, landscapes, and everyday scenes. Though technically skilled, his work lacked originality and emotional depth. These rare artworks, seen in vintage collections, reveal a different side of history, offering a glimpse into the troubled mind behind World War II. Long before digital machines, human computers were women who performed complex calculations by hand for science, engineering, and space exploration. In the early 20th century, they worked tirelessly on astronomical data, ballistics, and NASA missions. Vintage photos honor these brilliant women whose precision and dedication laid the foundation for modern technology. The 1920s brought a shift toward relaxed yet stylish clothing, breaking away from stiff Victorian norms. Men favored tailored suits with casual touches, while women embraced shorter hemlines, loose silhouettes, and chic accessories. Vintage photos highlight this balance of comfort and elegance, capturing an era where fashion mirrored social change and freedom. In 1964, Heineken introduced the Wobo bottle, designed to double as a brick for building homes after use. The idea aimed to reduce waste and address housing shortages. Vintage photos of these rectangular beer bottles showcase an innovative blend of sustainability, practicality, and design that was far ahead of its time. In the 1870s, French photographer Émile Bichard captured striking portraits of Egyptian life, from everyday people to cultural scenes. His photos reveal the clothing, traditions, and character of Egypt during a time of transition. These rare images preserve history, offering a vivid glimpse into 19th century Egyptian identity and society. The 1890s marked an era of sophistication in women's fashion, with high-neck blouses, puff sleeves, corseted waists, and elaborate hats. Vintage photos showcase women embracing elegance and refinement, reflecting both societal expectations and personal style. These glamorous images capture the grace and poise that defined late 19th century fashion trends. These groovy photos take us back to moments when fashion and attitude defined entire generations. From bold prints and flared pants to retro hairstyles and carefree vibes, each image reflects a spirit of confidence and creativity. This glamour flashback shows how timeless style from the past continues to inspire today's trends. So when we look back at these vintage photos, we're not just admiring outfits or faces. We're stepping into history, feeling the spirit of each era, and seeing how much of it still lives on in the way we think, dress, and create today. If you enjoyed this journey through time, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more amazing stories from history brought to life through vintage photos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.